our guest speaker has had a long career of exemplary law enforcement service to our state. He began his career as a uniform patrol deputy in the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office, after which he was the police chief for the city of Baker, where he was re-elected 7 times, unopposed for the last 4, for a total of 27 years. It's amazing. What a career. In December 2007, he was sworn into office as our very own East Baton Rouge Sheriff. In 2014, he was inducted into the Louisiana Justice Hall of Fame. He was the very first law enforcement officer to be given the Brotherhood Sisterhood Award in 2015. And in June of 2016, he was elected president of the Louisiana Sheriff's Association. Suffice it to say, his experience and resume are unparalleled. I would love to share all of it now, but we need time for him to speak, so I'll just let him. His main priority is keeping the residents of our communities safe while putting great emphasis on communication between the uniform patrol and the citizens that they guard. He's married to beautiful Susie Eckert that we've met, and they have 4 children, 10 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. Please join me in a warm welcome for our Sheriff, Sid Gautreaux.
Thank you for that introduction. First thing though, Chris, can you tell me exactly how you feel about Paige Cortez? It is indeed an honor and a privilege for me to be here with you today and tell you a little bit more about what we do at the Sheriff's Office and why we do it. But before I get into that, I have some people I want to introduce. First, she's already been introduced, but my lovely wife, Susie. We have Savannah Jones, who is part of our Public Information Department. We have Casey Hicks, who is my Public Information Director. And we have Dawn Sherry, who is in our Recruiting Department, and she does an excellent job there. And if any of y'all got an application, we'll be glad to take it today. You know, when I first met Susie and we decided to get married and all, she made me promise her 3 things. 1, that we'd go to the Presbyterian church. 2, I would not go in law enforcement. And 3, I would not hunt. She got 1 out of the 3. We went to the Presbyterian church. But somehow I think she already knew that before she told me that years and years ago. I want to tell you about why I got into law enforcement and why every person who is in law enforcement should have the same thing. When we hire someone, we look at 3 things. We look at their physical stature because it tells you a little bit about them and how they feel about themselves, and they have to really have that in today's law enforcement. We look at their mental capacity because that's another key component. They have to have the mental capacity to serve. But after that, we look in here. What's in their heart? Because what's in here is your character. And it tells me, are you here for the right reasons? Are you going to make us a good professional law enforcement officer? You can have every bit of this and every bit of this and none of this, and I don't want you. You can lack a little here and here, but you make up for it for what's in here. And I tell everybody I hire, I tell my people every day, there's only one reason to be in this profession, and that's to serve. That's to serve. It's what called me. I know God called me into this position until He tells me He's ready for me to leave, or until y'all tell me you're ready for me to leave. I'm gonna continue. My health's good, and so I wanted to tell everybody I am running for re-election next year. But I am blessed too because I have some wonderful, wonderful men and women who serve in East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office. They know what it takes to be a professional law enforcement officer. They care, they really care, and it's not a day, Susie can attest to this, it's not a day goes by that we're not somewhere out in the community. And a lot of people I don't even know, but they come up to me and tell me how much they appreciate what we're doing and how much they appreciate this deputy helping them do this, helping with a grandson or whatever. And that's what really gives me the gratification of my job. It's because I know that we're on this, me and the men and women in the office are in the same boat when it comes to knowing what our duties are and what we're here and what we've been placed here to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and start this slide presentation, but I forgot the clicker. Jill, you've already sat, she's not here. Did she leave? Oh, no. You've already sat through this presentation, so you don't have to pay attention. East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office from 2008 to 2022, we're doing more with EBR tax dollars. Wait a minute. Is that the second one, Casey?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Should be went.
I have a 300 and, ooh.
Sorry.
I have a 360-degree approach to law enforcement. And what I mean by that is this. It's a scale. One side of the scale is community outreach. The other side of the scale is enforcement. And you can have every bit of the community outreach and none of the enforcement, and we're not going to succeed. We're not going to be what you want us to be. Vice versa. We can do all the enforcement and little or no community outreach, and we're still not going to obtain the outcome that we want. It has to be balanced. It has to be balanced. The people in this community, no matter where they live, have to know that we're here. We're here for them. We're not going to be here today, gone tomorrow. We're here for them. We have to have our dialogues with them. They've got to be able to talk to us and us talk to them. And my guys and girls have done a great job with that. The worst area of crime that we had with the sheriff's office back when I took office was the Gautreaux area. 32% of all of our calls for service came from within Gautreaux, and they were the heavier cases like armed robbery, murder, and stuff like that. So we started a lot of initiatives that I'm fixing to show you on another slide, where we went into that area and concentrated community policing and concentrated putting people in there that knew the community. And I tell you, they still have some problems, but they are no longer our highest volume of calls that we have to answer every day. But it's because of that work. When I talk about rehabilitation, that's in a prison. And I don't care whether I have somebody in that jail for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. I'm going to expose them to as much rehabilitation as we possibly can. But we have got to stop this revolving door. We're putting people in, we let them out, they go right back to the same place they came from, and then they go right back to doing the same thing that got them in jail to begin with. So we're gonna do everything we can. When I took office, we only had 2 self-help programs. We got 23 now. And it's parenting skills, anger management skills, just teaching them life skills that they need to be able to be successful and keep themselves out of prison. We're now working with the state, and the state is going to have a relocation center. And that relocation center is going to help people relocate, not where they came from, but to a new area, so they can have a higher rate of success within that. And I'm proud to say that relocation center is going to be right here in East Baton Rouge Parish. I didn't know it, but the state told me this. Jimmy LeBlanc told me, he said, out of every person they release, when they release from prison in the state system, guess where they come? East Baton Rouge. The majority come to East Baton Rouge. Before Katrina, the majority came from New Orleans, but we've had a total change, which you all know. Overnight, we became the most heavily populated parish in the state, and I don't think we'll ever go back from that. That's what it is. But that's happening in our prison, and you know, it's unbelievable. They told me when I took office, I wanted a faith-based wing. And they said, well, you can't do it. They're not going to allow you to do it. Well, I talked to sheriffs across the country that had done it. And I said, tell me what you did right, tell me what you did wrong, because I want to start it here. We've had that faith-based wing. Nobody is forced to go into it. It's volunteer. We have over 115 ministers and priests that come into the prison every day just to talk to those inmates. And that's been a big, tremendous help. The other thing I did, I started a GED wing. Because I can tell you, if you go to the parish prison, and I'll let you look at everybody's files, the lack of education is one of the reasons they're in jail. The average educational level in East Baton Rouge Parish Prison is the 7th grade. Now, that's one thing we don't lead the nation in. Nationwide, believe it or not, it's the 5th grade. But here in East Baton Rouge Parish, it's the 7th grade. That's one thing, lack of education. We want to address that as well. That's another thing that leads to a life of crime. Lack of faith, lack of education. We started a GED wing, and that's a wing that we put people in who want to get some education. We don't make anybody go in that wing either, but we're helping them so when they get out, they can have a better chance of success. We've graduated hundreds with our GED program within the prison. What I don't have, so when you look, lack of faith, lack of education, there's other things that pop up with a life of crime. 99% of the people that are in parish prison right now as we speak, they have an addiction to drug or alcohol or both. So addiction is another big problem. And now we have a plague with mental health. And those are things that we don't have in this prison, we can't have in this prison. Physically, we can't have it. It's just you can't do it. Well, I need a chemical dependency wing. I need a mental health wing. Because those things are that's one of the things that's driving all of what you see out here in East Baton Rouge Parish and Baton Rouge today. Is all of those things. So we want to address them to try to keep those people from coming back. And the warden's done a tremendous job. One thing I wanted to do when I took office, I wanted a career correctional professional that was the warden. I thought it very important, and I recognized that fact back in '76. You didn't give the dates, but I started in '76 with the sheriff's office, and I worked in the prison for a year, and I was a sergeant in uniform patrol. But that year I worked in that prison, it just enlightened me so much as to go and check in people's backgrounds, because at that point, we never had more than 400 or 500 inmates in jail. But at nighttime, I'd go up in the front and start looking at their files, their jackets. And they all started the same way. Petty, juvenile crime, building up to what we have today. So, you know, those things, I know some of these things I want to do that I mentioned are not going to be accomplished with the facility we have today. And I'm going to touch on this briefly, and I'd like to come back at some other day and talk to you in depth about it. But the old part of that prison that I worked in 1976, it's the same thing that we have now. That old part of the prison is still standing, barely. We've had wings that we've had to shut down because the inmates would go in there and push on the cinder block, and all of a sudden they're in another part of the facility. And it's just dilapidated. It was built in the middle 60s. It's the same thing that was built at the same time for the juvenile facility, and it's just dilapidated. I mean, it's just, we have to close wings because we got 110 guys in a wing, and there's only one toilet working or one shower. We're not gonna have people living like that. I've had to send them out of Parish, but you know, they're our responsibility, and they're the parish's responsibility. So we have to address those issues. The newer part of the prison that was built in the 80s, it's not that it's dilapidated, but it was not built with modern expectations of what a prison should be, for the safety of not only the inmates, but for the safety of the men and women who work there as well. I still wasn't gonna get off on that prison deal. But no, you know, that's one other goal I have before I leave office, whenever, is to have that addressed, because we've got to do something. We've got to do something with it. And like I say, the juvenile facility is the same. I'll end on the prison with this. Sheriff's Office doesn't own that prison. The ground it sits on belongs to the airport. The building belongs to City Parish. And I'm the one that has to run it from a security standpoint and all of that, which is fine. But we're going to need to address this issue very soon. In my opinion, we should have addressed it a long time ago, but that's neither here nor there. We've got to live in the day that we're in. But I'm hopeful that we will do something with it and really get another. And like I say, when you talk about the prison, you got to throw the juvenile facility in there, because, and we don't run that. We have deputies working there that work courtroom security for the juvenile judges, but we don't have the security there. That's done by the state through the Department of Juvenile Justice. So let's move on.
Is it working?
It what now?
Is the clicker working or no?
I thought you were doing your exercise.
I was waiting to see.
All right, let me see.
Yes,
All right, good.
Good.
Thank you. Kind of get over to the side. We'll run through this. Recruiting and promotions. We've strengthened our procedures as far as. I found it. Let me position myself where I can look at that and also talk to you. We strengthened and enhanced our application process, and the result of that is we get more qualified employees. We formed hiring and promotion boards, and as a result, we started Deputy of the Month programs and annual awards programs that we recognize people for going above and beyond. We created a recruiting team, which resulted in diversifying our staff. And let me tell you about that. I think that any public entity should mirror what the community is. Got 20% of Hispanic, 20%, 30% black, whatever, white, black. It should be a mirror of the people that we're serving in the community that we have, and we strive to do that. We've improved compensation and related benefits. As a result, we increased our starting pay by more than 35%. We've really improved health care and benefits. These are the new divisions since we took over. Believe it or not, when I took over, we didn't have a homicide division. We created a homicide division. That's a specialized division. It's got to be. You can't go and investigate a homicide without having people that's in it and do it every day. And we've got some great people working there. We started a K-9 division. We started a bike patrol. We started a community policing unit, public information unit, grants department, criminal investigations unit. I'm going to speak on that in just a second before I go to the next slide. Our aviation unit, we have helicopters. Our marine search and rescue. Then we started a larceny, retail theft, property theft, auto theft, pawn shop, and investigative support units. All of those things came under the umbrella of just detectives, and we needed to break those apart and have their own because each and every one of them is very, very important. Going back to the criminal investigation units, that is a unit that we're still formulating, but it is up and running. We actually located them in Industriplex, and that's where we're gathering all our information. The information we get off the streets, the information we get through social media, the information we get from people calling us to give us information about what may or may not happen in their area. But we bring in all of that together into one building. And it ties into our crime cameras, ties into people who give us access to their home cameras, it ties into businesses, and it brings all of that together. I'm going to tell you this and try to make it quick. And I'm very proud of this because the ATF came to Baton Rouge and they wanted to run a gun, quote, narcotics undercover operation. And what happened was, in 3 days, and it was the sheriff's office, we had Baton Rouge PD there, we had the marshal's office, the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, the FBI, New Orleans PD came up here to see what our unit was all about, and they were very pleased with what they saw. But we brought all these people in, and in 3 days, just 3 days, we made 54 arrests. That's not 54 charges. You might charge one person with 2 or 3 things. That's 54 people that were involved in that kind of activity that we took off the streets. That was just in 3 days. Thank you. It also resulted in us taking 48 weapons off the street, which is, most of them were illegal weapons or stolen. So that helped us. But I'm very, very proud of the men and women in there. Major Stewart was tasked with putting it together, and we're still growing on it. One thing is the cameras we have such great resolution now. We were watching this group, and we knew that they were selling drugs and all this stuff and shooting at people, whatever. But we had them under surveillance. The cameras that we have now, and they had gotten together that morning early after daylight, and they were showing what all drugs they had. And we got it all on camera. Even more importantly, they all had put their guns down on the concrete while they were doing it. Don't you know that we were able to get a serial number from that camera off of that thing? Yes. And it was a stolen weapon, and we recovered it in the deal. But it's just unbelievable what technology has, and we're going to use as much of it as we possibly can. I don't use a real-time crime thing. You can call it that if you want, but I call it an criminal investigations unit, because to me, real-time crime center is I'm getting the information to the deputy on the street just like that. We're doing it, but we're still not where we're doing it fast enough. And we met with a technology company yesterday that's going to even bring us to bigger and better things. Enforcement, we've increased coverage. We increased uniform patrol deputies on the streets by 12%, increased detectives by 30%. We opened new substations in order to provide better service throughout the parish. Down south, that's our 2 busiest substations where we get the most calls, is Gautreaux and Burbank. And then in the central part of the parish, we have Scotlandville and Central, but then when you get up in the north part of the parish, we have one in Port Hudson, and then one out in Pride too. So I broke the parish up into 3 different areas, north, central, and south, and we allocate personnel where the biggest needs are. And that means right now that there's more deputies assigned to Gautreaux and Burbank than there are at Scotlandville and Central, but then and even less when you get up to Zachary, Port Hudson. But it was very important to me. I wanted to have, the north part of the parish, believe it or not, I mean, it's a big, big area. When I worked at Central, one night I told Susie after I did it, one night I was on duty, so I started at Plank and Hooper. I ran the whole boundaries all the way up to Baywood and all the way back to Plank Road. You know how many miles it was? 93 miles. It's a big, big area. So we've increased patrols there as well as everywhere. In the first 12 years in office, we reduced violent crimes against persons by 41%, reduced homicides by 45%, reduced property crime by 24%, and we greatly increased clearance rate in all divisions. Our homicide rate clearance is anywhere from last year was different, but anyway, it averages between 88% and 92% clearance rate, which is way above the national average. National average is about 58 or 60%, so I'm very proud of what they do in the homicide division. I want to, y'all should have them on your tables. I brought some annual reports. Each year we put an annual report out for the previous year. Thank you, young man. Appreciate that. Might have to deputize him. But it gives all the stats. I'm not going to go through all of that with you right now, but please take one and at your convenience, go through it and it'll tell you in depth what we're doing. Going to the homicides, in 2021, we had 17 homicides. We solved all 17. And I'm talking about, this is in the sheriff's office. As sheriff, I wear 3 hats. I call them the 3 C's. I got the civil office, the criminal office, and then corrections. And all of them are equally important as the rest as far as the overall operation of our department and our success. So far in 22, we've had 8 that's been killed in the parish, and we got 7 of those 8 solved. We have jurisdiction throughout the parish. By state law, the sheriff is, quote unquote, the chief law enforcement officer for each parish. And that's set up in the state constitution. That's why we run the same time as the statewide elected officials run, which will be next year. But we're very proud of what these men and women have done in the homicide division. And I'll tell you, we started back when Jeff LaDuff was chief. We started a violent crime unit. It's housed at the state police, and it's the homicide detectives from Baton Rouge PD and East Baton Rouge Parish. Those men and women are working together in the same building, the same room on a daily basis. They're exchanging information. That's one of the reasons it helps us have a higher clearance rate, and it helps Baton Rouge City as well, because they're there every day. We didn't have that, and I'm very thankful. At that time it was Mike Edmondson. He was the superintendent of state police, and he helped make that happen as well. But you know, it's a tool that's just invaluable, and most people don't know it. You know, most people don't ask me, what is that? That's why I'm telling y'all now. But that's a wonderful tool as well. And we got our federal partners working in there with us as well. The U.S. Marshals Service, the ATF, they all work with us in that same building. Enforcement, anti-crime initiatives, we target enforcement. We made hundreds of arrests, clearing thousands of warrants, drugs, and guns seized. Holiday initiatives, we increased patrols in business and residential areas, greatly reducing crime. You'll see more presence during that time, especially in these shopping centers, Mall, Louisiana, whatever. We put as many units in those areas and in subdivisions as we possibly can. Business checks, we've increased deputy-initiated business checks by 60%. Substation community outreach, I can't tell you the hundreds and hundreds of outreach programs we have with our criminal, well, not criminal, but with our resource deputies that we use in community outreach. We do that, and I think Savannah, probably close to 400 a year. That's how many outreach programs we do. One of the things I campaigned on, and I think Christy mentioned it, but it was working together with all law enforcement agencies in here. Because I remember the day and time when I started, you just didn't cooperate. He didn't say anything to the, and it's wrong. It was wrong then, it's wrong now. But today, it's imperative that we work together. You know, we have to do what we have to do to provide you the services that you need. And it's changed from the federal level, state level, on a local area, level. We don't have that problem. Now, we get problems in the federal area, but it's not the FBI or anybody else that we work with. It's whatever Washington has that they want them to do. One thing I was very disappointed in this past year is they did away with the human trafficking portion of that, which is very big. And we continue to do it within our own resources, but the FBI, they had to switch their focus to something that was not up there at that level. It just doesn't make sense. But like I mentioned before, we got the violence crime units, we got the Delta Drug Task Force, which is 7 sheriff's officers along the Mississippi River. And we actually, with that task force, we're the primary response to anything happening in the Port of Baton Rouge. We were able to get some grants for boats. We got a boat on the river right now. It's a 48-foot boat. And that boat has firefighting capabilities. There's hoses built onto it that you've seen like fire boats do. And we got fire crews both here in East Baton Rouge Parish and West Baton Rouge Parish that are trained with us. That we have and that's only, you can't fight a fire from the water anywhere along there because there's no boats to it except the one we got. So we got fire departments that have trained squads to come on a boat and be able to fight fires, whether it's a vessel fire or whether it's a fire. We got those 3 casinos. I mean, there's no way to fight that other than from the land. So we got that in place. We also have a MOU, memorandum of understanding, with the EMS. They can come on board too. If we get an injured person on that river, the boat's designed so you can put somebody on a stretcher and they go through the bow on the lower level, and they go right in there. We have a facility there that they can receive initial treatment from EMS and then take it to the hospital, whatever we have to do. But that's another thing. Let's see, where was it? U.S. Marshals Task Force, we have deputies assigned to that. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, we have deputies assigned to that. School Drug Task Force, FBI Task Force, we have deputies assigned to that. Secret Service Task Force, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, call it ICAC, but we involved with that as well heavily. We part of the Louisiana State Police Fugitive Apprehension Unit. The JTF 7 Marine Operations is part of what I told y'all about. I told you about the Drug Task Force, but I was looking at the wrong thing. But the Delta Drug Task Force is another. It's 7 agencies, both city police and sheriff's officers in our area, that Greater Baton Rouge area, and we work drugs together on that. Crime Stoppers, Truce, Crime Lab, we have technicians that work for us that are assigned to the Crime Lab. We increase safety in our schools, which we cannot do enough of. School Drug Task Force, we've got school resource officers. We have DARE in hundreds of schools. We've got truancy initiatives, and it's all done inside the city jurisdictions as well as outside. We don't tell you no. Most of the time, if we get a call for service, we'll tell you, sir, if it's not an emergency, if it's an emergency, we just send it to people. But if it isn't an emergency, we say, sir, ma'am, you live inside the city of Baton Rouge, Baker, whatever, would you like us to transfer the call? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But right now, 23% of all of our calls for service come within the city of Baton Rouge. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but people, they want us, and we're going to go. Technology, we switched radios to the 800 megahertz with other first responders, and that allows us to be able to talk to anybody in the state. I can leave Baton Rouge and we can go all the way to Orange, Texas before I lose service. And we can go all the way to Gulfport, Mississippi before I lose service. But anywhere in between, I can talk to my units, unit to unit. It's just not calling a base. It's a unit. It makes a tremendous, I remember the day when we didn't have that. I keep telling y'all that, but I'm old. But it's really helped us. We have updated our computer and phone systems for better customer service. You can pay, I should talk about taxes, but you can pay your tax online and you can pay tickets online. And it's taken me, and she still does it to this day. What is this tax notice you're sending here? We can't know that much. That's her, the little blonde sitting in the back. I said, Susie, I'm not the assessor. I'm the collector. But I gotta explain that to a lot of people anyway. Let's see. We started online tax sales and civil auctions. We updated public safety equipment for better training and protect deputies and residents. We've improved body armor and rifle vests. We're getting body cameras in this year, and we hope to do it by December or November. And let me briefly tell y'all that. I will keep it brief. I've never been against the cameras. My concern was, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? And I kept waiting, thinking that the legislature is encouraging us to get it, that when they should pay for that. When you mandate something to somebody, the legislature has to pay for it. Well, that never happened. But we took some of our CARE Act money that we got, and we said, now's the time to go. And one thing that really saved us before, we'd have probably had to spend about $5-6 million a year with getting enough staff in a facility to store all that information from. But now you can put it in the cloud and it's secure. So we vetted all of these different departments. We've been doing that for over a year now, and we finally got down to who we wanted to use and what kind of equipment, what its capabilities are. But we got that done, and I've signed the contract already. I signed it a couple months ago, I think. But anyway, we're going to have body-worn cameras on all of our uniform patrol deputies. So, thank you. Firearms training, we've improved that. And we got crash simulators as well as firearm simulators where we can take a deputy in there and run different scenarios, whether shoot is like a shoot, don't shoot thing. And then our crash simulator, we got the crash simulator, but we have our deputies assigned to the State Police Training Academy, and they have their own track for vehicle pursuits and stuff like that, and that's been a big help as well. We've updated our depleted fleet for better response times and patrols. Our community outreach, as I mentioned earlier, community relations and outreach, keeping the residents fully informed. We put out our annual reports, we put out monthly newsletters, and now that we have the public information that I had when I came in, and it's been invaluable because we want to release information to the public in a very timely manner, but we don't want to misinform you, and we want to make sure that the information you're getting is what you need and it's actual. It's not, because it's been my experience, and every time something happens, no matter where it happens, what happened. Let's say there was a wreck out here on Drusilla, and maybe 3 or 4 cars involved, and maybe a couple people had to go to the hospital. By the time that gets from here past the country club or wherever, we had 5 people get killed. There was a drag race. It's never really what happened. So we want to do things in a timely fashion, and Casey does a great job of that. But we want you to be informed, but we want you to be well informed. We do television, we do press releases, website. We got our own. I got my
personal website for campaign, but then we got this website for the sheriff's office. And we're doing a lot on social media. And y'all know that that's something I've had to learn. Everything's about social media. When you go back to our crime investigation unit, criminal investigation unit, we get so much information off the bad guys' websites, off their Facebook, off their Twitter, and that's another tool. I know none of y'all are criminals, so don't go telling anybody I'm we do have more face-to-face, two-way communication, like I say, from community policing, bike patrol, neighborhood initiatives. I mentioned this already. We've increased from 2 to 22s, 23 now, new self-help programs, money management, anger management, parenting. It's all done by volunteers. Like I said, we more than doubled the GED program. I already gave y'all that. We got a chapel there. We got chaplains there. Work release program. Reality behind bars. That's for troubled youth. You can bring at-risk youth in, and they actually, the inmates themselves do skits, letting the young people relate, but showing them how they got started and what started them in the wrong direction. So that's a good program. We provide public defenders, the DA, and courts direct access to information to determine appropriate bonds. And we've had it for years. We've got a little mock courtroom at Parish Prison. In fact, we've got 2 of them. We've encouraged our judges to arraign those people over that network, so I don't have to load up 100, 125 inmates to take them down to the courthouse to be arraigned. Getting all of those judges to get online with it has been like trying to pull hens teeth. It's, it's just, am I done? Oh.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry. But anyway, where did I stop? We set up an extensive library in the prison. We got a chapel there. We got work release programs. Set up reality behind bars. Working with the DAs and the public defenders to try to get cases through the system as quick as we can. This is how the sheriff's office is funded. All right. You see the one on the left. That is our total revenue income for each year. It'll fluctuate a little bit because so much of it is determined by property values. We don't receive a penny in sales tax. The sheriff's office does not get any money from sales tax. There's only 6 sheriffs in the state of Louisiana who do get money from sales tax, but we're not one of them. So we have to rely, and you can see 72% of our total revenue is derived from 3 ad valorem taxes, property taxes. One is a permanent bond, which will be there through perpetuity. But we got that, and then we have 2 other bonds that are renewable every 10 years. We just renewed one 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. We got one coming up. It's going to be on this year in the midterm elections. It's going to be on the ballot then. We put it on for the runoff election, though, which is December the 10th. So it will be coming up, and I can't express how important that is to us. And I'll explain to you in a minute. You go to the expenditure side, you can see that the vast majority of our 74% of our budget goes towards personnel services and benefits, and then the other ones are broke down according to each individual function. But anyway, I want to go back to the 74%, and this is what's so important, and I'm asking you to please support this. We're going to be doing a lot of educating the public as to what this is for, but this is the impact it would have. If we don't renew that tax, no new taxes. I've never come to the people with any new taxes. One day I might have to, but I've never had to do it, and we've been able to do all these things with what we had already, and quite frankly, saving a lot of money in different, people we do business with. Insurance has been kept real low, and I'm very thankful for that. But if we lose this bond in December, it takes away $33 million out of our budget. That's a third of our budget. As you can see, we always right around $98 million budget. We lose $33 million. That's gonna be crippling. We're gonna be forced to cut back on a lot of our services, and I don't wanna see that happen. I'm sure you don't wanna see it happen either. But that's the reality of it. So I hope, like I say, not a new tax. It's just a renewable tax, but we need that very bad. I just talked about the villages. That's it's our biggest millage, as you can see. The permanent millage is 4.36 mils, and that's been since 1977. The other two are renewable every 10 years. The 3.73 mils been in place since '81, and the one we're talking about is 6.9 mils, and that's been in existence since 1994. Just further breakdown of it. All that should be in the. You can look here. This has been the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's budget throughout the years. Of course, which year did it start in?
06.
06, yeah. Well, that's been through most of our term. We wasn't in office in 06, but it can tell you where we've grown, but we've been able to provide all the services that we've added and everything, and hopefully more. But we have not had to go to, at this point to you, the public, and ask for any more money. That's it. Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, you can have a look. Give me a hand, sir. Thank you. Y'all have any questions? I know I kept y'all long.
Yes, Sheriff Gautreaux, you're great. I was gonna ask you if you wouldn't mind taking a few questions, and I think